Unlike Minnesota, the state of Washington does have a number of military bases. Of course, the most prominent being Fort Lewis, one of the largest Army bases in the nation. Also, we have three Air Force bases. Well, actually, two Air Force bases. One is the Navy Air Base. Two Navy stations, including a very large one at Bremerton, nuclear submarine base. So, and National Guard reserves. So we have quite a military presence. Plus, frankly, we're not an income tax state. So guess what? They tend to say, oh, yeah, Washington State's our permanent residents, right? So we get a lot of them voting in the state of Washington. But also, we are a state that is very engaged in the causes of the humanity. We have World Vision that is based in the state of Washington. We have a huge number of missionaries throughout the world and people working on various causes. We are the most trade-dependent state in the nation, so we have people doing international trade throughout the globe. And in fact, you know, I was in India and I went around the bend. Here's this huge Microsoft headquarters, Amazon.com headquarters. Starbucks is everywhere you go. Boeing is everywhere. So we again, the state of Washington, have a huge presence around the world as well. Our agricultural industry and forestry industry is everywhere as well. So this has been very important for us. And it's been a priority of mine since I became Secretary of State 10 years ago. And also my predecessor, Ralph Monroe, a top priority for him. Because we have this nuclear submarine base, we got what we call the submarine ballot adopted back in the 90s, where we can, even 60 days out, get a blank ballot to people if they don't have the opportunity to get anything else. We have online voter information, online voter pamphlets. We have online voter registration. We have all kinds of things that we make available of course, to the citizens of our state, but also is really helpful to people located throughout the world. We also had the challenge that Mark was mentioning in Minnesota of having a very late primary in the middle of August. And so I started championing moving the primary, and since that system had successfully elected the legislators in office, guess what? They weren't too receptive to this, but it took quite a while, and finally a real push. I got the Veterans Lobby to get together and really make a big push, and we moved it back to August as well. But that, and by the way, last year, our fall election, we did have 50,000 UCAVA registered voters. So we have quite a few, and I think there are more out there. So we are continuing, because the estimates are far higher than that. So we are continuing to pursue that and get them registered. The MOVE Act, one of the real problems we had with the MOVE Act was this requirement that the ballots go out 45 days before the election. We view that as the premise is that they need 45 days to receive the ballot and to get it back to us. Well, in the state of Washington, you don't have to have the ballot back by Election Day. As long as you vote by Election Day, we wait. In fact, for a general election, it is now 20 days after we will count the ballots. So, in fact, in the last two elections, we've been able to count 99% of the UCAVA ballots that came back to us. So that hasn't been a problem. Plus, we've been getting very good participation. I think it's something like 87%. And we automatically mail, by the way. We're essentially a vote-by-mail state, with the exception of a very small fraction of people. Not of people, of voters. And but we have, so they get those ballots out there, and we've been getting a great response. But because of the 45-day thing, and it being really impossible for us to guarantee it, because like Mark was mentioning, recount, you get a recount, and all of a sudden, you know, you start eating up a lot of time, or what happens far too often in this litigious society is you get sued, or the printer makes a mistake or something. So we did ask for a waiver. They gave it to us, not much hassle, but did inform us that that we shouldn't count on that in the future, that this is kind of like a one-time only thing. So I've gone to the legislature this session, proposing moving the primary again 2 weeks. Well, guess what they're saying to me? What? We just did this, and we aren't getting what I would call exactly a very positive response from the legislature, but we're kind of telling them, well, you really have to do this. So we'll see how that works. And I understand it did move out of the Senate committee just a couple of days ago, so we're a little encouraged with that. The other point that I wanted to make is that, and it relates to the previous panel, but is that we continue to be frustrated by having to rely on the mail. And you heard a person from my election staff get up and I thought make quite an eloquent statement about the problem in the previous panel. When you have people who are in the upper Volta and in Chad and soldiers who are out on deployed and are out in maneuvers or in battles in Afghanistan or something, guess what? The mail isn't going to get there and get back. And so I have proposed, we already email ballots to them. And they've really appreciated that. We've been doing that for a long time in our state. In fact, as Thurston County Auditor, we started doing it back, I think, in 1997. But I do have a bill in to allow us to also have the ballot returned, where they can print it out, then vote, sign their affidavit, scan that in, and email it back to the individual county that they're voting from. And that just passed the House last week by, I think it was 96-0. And even though they heard things like you heard from some of the panelists today, but it's because we do have those situations where really they need to have this option. And I'm going to continue championing it. I realize the risk, but we think that is very important for our voters. So, and we have found that we've surveyed the UCAVA voters in 53.51 to receive those ballots by email. The lessons we've learned is that while FVAP tried in terms of getting a reliable, user-friendly, and efficient electronic ballot delivery system, we were constrained by very tight timelines. The funded vendor for our state was late in meeting the deadline. We struggled to implement the homegrown ballot delivery program on time. We attribute that to being late to the short time period we had to build a quality ballot delivery system. We needed more flexibility in terms of the deadlines of getting the ballots out. But overall, I am very proud of what we have done in the state of Washington. Our county people make it a top priority. My state election staff makes it a top priority. And we get nothing but positive feedback from the UCAVA voters from the state of Washington. Thank you.